Part 5. Blessed. 40. Seasons change. Oluwatoyin. On January 29th, Grandma phoned to tell me that my uncle had died. I'd made a trip to Dallas just after Christmas and said my goodbyes to him in the hospital, but the news still felt like a shock. 2 months earlier I'd thought he was just as healthy as ever, and now he was dead. Grandma phoned me a couple of times in the days after he passed. She said she wanted to find out more about him, and she listened as I told her everything I knew about his life in Nigeria. She was softer, kinder. Even though I hated the reason, I liked the change in her. And then, silence. For several days I heard nothing from her. When I did finally call her, and I asked about the funeral, she said, "We're burying him tomorrow. For in the afternoon. Can you come?" I wanted to ask her why I was only finding out about the funeral now, a day before. I wanted to know what she was thinking and why she was still playing games at a time like this. But I didn't have the energy. I told her I'd talk with Kayode and let her know. In the end, I didn't go. It was obvious that she didn't want me there, and I figured that if I showed up, she would find another way of reminding me that I was not a part of her family. I believe that there are seasons for grieving and seasons for living, and the change from one to the other can be as quick as an African sunrise. For me, it was just a few weeks after my uncle's death that I noticed the swift transition. It was a regular Thursday afternoon, and I walked to PS 116 to get Tani from his chess club. Coach Russ was there, and after we'd talked a little, it was clear that he had something he wanted to say. He's always full of energy, his eyes smiling bright, but this time he was even more excited. In a few weeks, it's the state championship in Saratoga Springs, and Tani's rating is high enough for him to qualify. I'd love for him to be there. A lot of people are going to be there, and Tani will have to play 6 games over 2 days against some of the best players in New York State. It's not going to be easy, but it will be a great experience for him. What do you say? Tani had been hanging on every word his coach had said, and he barely paused for breath before he said, "Yes, please, Coach Russ." Both of them turned to look at me. "What do you think, Mrs. Adewumi? Would you come too? It's a long drive, and there will be a lot of waiting around, and we won't be staying in a hotel, but we'd love to have you with us." I could feel the season shifting from grieving to living again. So I smiled. "I will be very happy to come with you too, Coach Russ."
41. On to the state championship. Tani. One day while we were walking to the basketball court, Austin and I talked about Mom and Dad. I said, "What do you most like about them?" Austin started talking about Dad and said, "He's hardworking and wants the best for us, and he's always reminding us to focus and pay attention and become a great person in life." I said, "I like all those things too." Then Austin said, "Wait, I forgot. I have one more thing to add about Dad. I like his suits." That was funny, but not in a rude way, because Dad really does have a lot of suits, and all of them look really good. Then I said, "What about Mom?" Austin thought for a moment. He said, "She's the best at teaching moral lessons, and she's always trying to guide us away from bad things. Did you know the other day when I was on a school trip, some kids were messing around badly, but I made them stop because I remembered all those stories she'd told us about how important school is?" Austin had already told me that story about the school trip, but I nodded anyway. We reached the court then, and it was time to play, so I didn't get to say what I liked most about Mom. But all the time we were playing I was thinking about her and what my answer would be. I like that she cooks good food. She can make anything taste good, and all the time we were living at the hotel, I think she really missed not having a kitchen of her own. I like that she corrects me. Well, maybe I don't like it, but I know that it's helpful, so I'm grateful for that. Most of all, I like that she helps me in my chess. When I don't play well, she doesn't get mad or make a big deal out of it like some parents do. She just says, do you think you can do better? And I say yes, and she says, well, if you work hard and concentrate and do your very best, that will be good enough. And she takes me to chess tournaments. She's never too busy, even though she also takes Austin to his basketball games and cooks all the time and has her own job too. So my mom is good at sharing her time with us, and my dad works harder than anyone else I know and will do anything to make sure we are safe and that we are moving forward toward a better future. I know I've probably got two of the best parents ever. If I ever forget that, all I have to do is remember the time when Mom came with me to the state championship in Saratoga Springs. We started out at the car rental place that's not far from the school. When we got there, we saw my best friend, Zishi, with Coach Russ and Coach Sean and Coach Angel and Coach Nashali and Coach Aaron and Coach Logan. Then the whole team and all the coaches and my mom and I climbed into a white van and drove for hours and hours and hours. On the way, it got dark outside pretty quickly, and everyone was either talking or listening to music. Mom was sitting in the back, laughing with some of the coaches, and I liked the way that it seemed like she was on the team, just like me. I was sitting right behind Coach Sean, and he pulled out his phone and started playing a game online. I watched and saw that it was a live game. I tried not to talk and to just let him play, but after 2 moves I was so full of questions that I thought I might burst. I said, Coach Sean, who are you playing? He said it was a live game organized by some people in Chicago. And because Coach Sean says that he likes for me to ask questions, and he has never told me to stop, I asked him a whole bunch more. Why did you make that first move? Is that a new opening? What's it called? What rating is the person you're playing? Do you think they're a master like you? Did you ever play Fabiano? What happened? Coach Sean answered all of my questions, and he only once said, don't you want to take a nap, kid? I was super excited, and so I said, no, Coach Sean. I'm not at all tired. And I kept on asking him questions. When we finally stopped driving, I was starting to almost feel tired, but Coach Russ showed Mom and me into the house he had rented and said that we were going to have the biggest room because Mom was the guest of honor. It was a really big room, and I think you could have put 4 of the rooms from the hotel into that one. Mom said it was late and that I should go to sleep, but I was excited again, so I went downstairs because the coaches were all sitting around playing chess and laughing. I asked Coach Sean if I could stay up and play, but he gave me a look like the one Mom had given him outside the airport and said, you want to do well in this tournament? I nodded and said, yes, Coach Sean. Then you better get your butt to sleep. I didn't argue at all. I went straight to bed.
42. The first match. Oluwatoyin. On the first day of the state championship, the room felt just like it always did in every other tournament I had been to. Parents and coaches talked, our children came and went, and the atmosphere was calm. I always like these moments. I like to watch the way the coaches help the players to find their focus and prepare them to go out and play their best. I like the way they tell stories and give their players advice so that they will do well in life as well as chess. Coach Sean started that morning with a question. Imagine I take you out of this room and magically drop you off in France. You don't have a cell phone, you don't have a map, and you can't speak the language. What's the one word that best describes how you feel? Tani and the others put their hands up and said the same thing. Lost. That's right, said Coach Sean. And it's exactly the same with chess. You might have spent hours and hours studying your openings and remembering the moves you want to make, but if you decide to deviate from your plan and start moving pieces without thinking just because you want to hurry things along and get the game finished, it's like landing in another country. You'll feel lost, and it will all be because you stopped thinking and started rushing. Soon after that, it was time for the first round of matches. Tani came over to say goodbye and have a hug, but I could tell that his mind was already in the match room. "Are you okay?" I asked. He mumbled something about not wanting to end up in France, then turned and strode toward the door. Tani plays fast. Sometimes too fast. He says that he likes to make his moves quickly and aggressively like Paul Morphy did, but Coach Russ is always trying to have him slow down. Coach Russ says that if he's moving so fast that he's knocking pieces over or isn't putting them down in the middle of the square, he's got to slow down. All the same, tournament matches can take as long as 2 or 3 hours, even in 3rd grade. So when Tani left for his first match, I settled back and prepared to wait. My mind drifted. Minutes slipped into each other. And then Tani was standing in the doorway. His face was blank, like it always is when he finishes a match. The only way of telling how he's done is to watch his right hand. Slowly he lifted his arm and stuck out his fist. Then he stuck out his thumb and jabbed it into the air. "Well done," said Coach Russ. "High five," said Coach Sean. "And me?" I got another hug.
43, 3 big thumbs up. Tani. Even though the tournament was bigger than anything I'd ever been to in New York and there was a lot of noise and distractions like there were in Orlando, I stuck to my plan all through my first game. I took it slow. Really slow. I remembered my opening and saw the board take on the patterns that I wanted it to. I stayed calm and breathed steadily, and after a long time of playing, I won. It was the same with the second game. I went in knowing that the number one main thing I did not want to do was to rush or lose. I won. "Okay, my man," said Coach Sean as he finished looking through my notebook after the second match. "This is good, but let's not make a big deal of this. Keep working on those openings." That's what I did. I used a laptop and practiced my favorite openings. I'd done it before a lot of times, but it felt good to remind myself of how the board should look if I was making the best possible choices. Soon I was playing my third game. That one was quick. When I came back into the team room after my third game and held my thumb up high so that Coach Sean and Mom could both see that I'd won, it felt extra good. Mom gave me a hug, and Coach Sean held up his hand for a high five. "Nice work, Tani. You're 3-0. If this were a one-day tournament, you'd have won." We went back to the house soon after and had some food. I really wanted to stay up and play with the coaches, especially as they were playing blitz and the room was full of laughter and the coaches were saying funny things to each other. I begged Coach Sean, and he actually said yes. But just one game of blitz, and then you gotta go to bed straight after. Agreed. We played and he won. He's really good, and so he got me with this trap that I didn't see until the last minute. It was the first match I'd lost all day, but I didn't mind. Before I said good night, he said, "Tani, you have a shot at actually winning this tournament now. So get some sleep and be ready for a big day, okay?" I said, "Yes, Coach Sean," and ran up the stairs to bed. It had been a great day, but I really liked the idea of the next day being even better.
44. Wondering and waiting. Oluwatoyin. Tani wasn't the only one who started the second day of the state championship with the maximum points. A boy from a different school who also studied under Coach Russ was 3-0, and there were several more who had only dropped half a point by drawing 1 and winning 2. As soon as I walked into the room early on Sunday morning, it felt different. Across the room, little huddles of children gathered around their coaches. There were tables full of snacks and drinks, but nobody had time for that. There was work to be done. I liked watching Coach Sean run through his pregame routine with his players from PS116. This time there were no night pieces handed out, but there was a lot of talk about Lions. That's what you all are, he said. You're my lions, and I'm proud of you. Now come on in here, and let's get one of you in the middle so that we can send you out onto the wide-open savannah to go hunting. Who's first? The room filled with the sound of chanting as first Tani, and then the other players from PS116 were placed in the middle. Saturday's matches had all been long by Tani's standards, some of them over 2 hours. So soon after he went off to play his first match of the day, I settled into a chair and sat quietly reading my book. I'd only made it through a few pages when Coach Russ came and joined me. I couldn't hold in my question for very long. Coach Russ, how do you think Tani will do today? He leaned forward and rubbed his hands together. You've got to understand how tough this tournament is. New York represents the best scholastic chess players in the country. Tani's going up against the best and brightest. Then he shrugged. But there's something about Tani that's special. It's not because of where he's come from. I've seen other kids come from similar backgrounds and other kids who have learned how to play quickly. What's unique about Tani is Tani. People are drawn to him, and everybody who meets him loves him. He's put himself at the table with players who are way better than him, players at the national level, and he just seems to fit right in. So, will he do well today? I think so. He nearly lost his last match yesterday, so he's still got to battle to keep his focus right, but could he end up in the top 4 or 5? I think he could. Can he win the whole thing? Yes, he smiled. It would be a miracle, though. Tani came back from his 4th match with his thumb raised high and his smile as bright as ever. He went through his notation book with Coach Sean, and in between doing puzzles and talking with the coaches, I made sure he had something to eat and drink. The room felt different when he went out for his 5th game. Some of the other parents had left already, after their children had been eliminated, and so the place was quieter. I tried reading my book, but I had no appetite for it. All I wanted to do was sit quietly and enjoy the calm as each minute ticked by. I sniffed and felt something on my nose. It was blood. Quite a lot of it, too. I went to the bathroom, used some tissue to get the bleeding under control, and cleaned myself up. While I was washing, the most powerful memory hit me. The last time I'd had a nosebleed was the day I gave birth to Tani. It had taken a long time to stop it then, but the midwife had told me it was normal and that I should not worry about it. I stayed in the bathroom, the memory so real that I could almost feel the tightening in my belly again. I remembered the way the bed felt, the bright hospital lights, the sound of other babies and women crying out nearby. And then I remembered the song that I'd been singing the day Tani came into the world. It was a song that we sang at church about God taking a little shepherd boy named David and making him a great and mighty king. I sang it quietly to myself again as I walked back to the team room.
45. Doing deep thinking. Tani. If you want to be good at chess, there are some things that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to concentrate on the board for a long time. You have to remember all the moves for your opening. You have to know how you're going to respond to different traps that your opponent is going to try and lay for you. All these things are all really important. But they're not enough. There's one thing that you cannot survive without if you want to win. You have to be able to do deep thinking. Coach Sean is always telling us, you can't just find a move. You have to have plans. He says, this is what chess comes down to. Can you gather all the possible detail of a position and then come up with a move that is either going to fix your weakness or increase your strength? Every Thursday he talks about this. And when he does, he always sets us a challenge. He puts a position up on the whiteboard and says, okay, guys, imagine you find yourself right here in a game. I'm putting 15 minutes on the clock, and you've got to find me 3 plans for how to get out of here. Those 15 minutes are tough. We have to think ahead 4 or 5 moves, and while we're trying to do that, Coach Sean walks around reminding us what to do, saying things like, look for those candidate choices, people. Or, how's the king looking? Or, what's the pawn structure? What's your weakness? What needs to improve? The time always goes by really fast. And when it does, Coach Sean asks each of us to say what we think. We have to tell him which of our plans is the best and why. Sometimes he even asks us what plan we'd use if our opponent was really aggressive or really defensive. It's hard work. But it's how you learn to do deep thinking. In my 5th game at the state championship, I was staring at the board, and I could almost hear Coach Sean ask me to tell him about the pawns and the king and the weaknesses in my position and everything else. I was looking ahead maybe 6 or even 7 moves, and I'd never done that before in a game. I was trying to hold on to the thought and not let my brain get distracted at all by anything other than the position and the moves ahead. And then I remembered playing a Paul Morphy game, and I knew that if I could get my opponent to take my bishop, I could win.